Hello, everyone. Welcome to How to Tell the Future. And this is going to happen through storytelling. I am David, and I am a classic storyteller, and I'm going to be using those classic storytelling techniques to do some true wizardry. You are going to learn how to tell the future. And isn't that going to be handy in such an uncertain time? My word. So, in my life right now, children going to school, upcoming elections, finances, um, so many different relationships I have with people around the country. When am I going to see them again? Are things going to be restored to what they used to be? What are they going to look like in the future? So many question marks, and I'm sure the same thing is the case for all of you. So we are actually going to have a practical way of getting answers. Before I get too much further, though, I'd like to invite you all into a storytelling space. And that is a very receptive and soft space. And what that will allow is so that you can actually have a very flexible experience of the potentially esoteric things that are before you. Now, I'd like to say that all of this is very concrete and very straightforward, but I'll be using language which sounds pretty far out there. And if you're in a soft space, you will flow with that language a little bit more fluidly than if you were in a purely intellectual space where you may, stop regularly and say, "What does he mean by that? Where is he going with this?" and that sort of thing. That is not to keep you from having a logical experience. It's just I want you to be able to really fully be able to tap into this, and making yourself receptive is really handy as a storyteller. So we'll do a brief warm up, and I'm going to get you out of this kind of thinking and into this kind of thinking. And what I mean by that is that conscious thinking tends to be very linear, tends to be very hold on, and where does this fit? Whereas heart thinking experience, and I do literally mean heart thinking, tends to be more like, the gut feelings, even though that's gut thinking, but it's the same general area right here where you're not parsing through things as much as you just have a feeling. You just have an urge, you have a hunch. That's a good space to be in for this particular tutorial. So in order to do that, we really need to get into our body first. So I would like to invite you all to feel your bodies wherever you are. And I like to start in the limbs, in fact, the extremities. So in the fingers and in the toes. So let's just start with sensing our fingertips. Just feel them. Maybe they're touching something right now, but just get a sense of what they feel like, and you can already begin to feel yourself settling into your body. Then just expand that awareness into your fingers, and then into your hands. And you can take as long as you'd like with this. In the future, those of you who are not live, you can pause and just do whatever experience you need to do in order to get fully into your body. I like to do hands, and then into the arms, and then into the shoulders, and then I like to do toes, and into the feet, to the ankle, and then the legs, knees, thighs, hips. I like to feel all four limbs. And every time for me, I just drop into a completely different space. So where I am right now and where you will be is sitting. Even if you're standing, even if you're lying down, but imagine yourself sitting on a throne made out of a mountain. Your back is up against the mountain, and before you is an open valley, and you can see everything. You can see the rushing waters, the trees, the mountains across the way, township, comings and goings, all the business. But you are mounted into that mountain. You are safe. You are solid. And in this space, I invite you to pay 80% of your attention on yourself. That's your physical body, that will be on your feelings, and that will be on whatever sensory experiences that are happening in the world you attract, meaning whatever you hear, whatever you see, whatever you smell, even what you taste or what touches your skin, anything that's coming towards you. 80% of that, I just want you to pay attention to how it affects you. Where is it in your body? So the easiest way for me to get into that space is actually through sound. I believe our brains are built to welcome in sound more than any other sense. Maybe smell is before that, but I know for me, sound is very potent. So just close your eyes, and you can even take an inventory. Just count up how many individual sounds you can hear, but instead of imagining yourself going out and finding those sounds, imagine the sounds coming to you so you don't have to leave your seat made out of the mountain. So just collect some sounds for a moment. Okay, great. So here we are. You are now in a very receptive and soft place, and you will be open to um, creative, intuitive, dynamic, poetic language that I will almost certainly be using. So, what is this and why does it work? How is it that storytelling can actually predict the future? And so, I'm going to actually start with why this works before we get into the how to. And this is not a lesson on neuroscience. This is actually out of my own experience. And so you try this on, and you can do your own research to see how much of this lines up with your scientific understanding of the mind. But my understanding is that we attend much more than we consciously remember, meaning that we are taking in information, massive amounts of information at all times. And most of that is going into the subconscious. Now, we are taking in some very important information that our conscious mind and our intellectual mind has not made sense of yet. But our animal has, and our animal is interested in surviving. So our animal part of who we are has used the heart, used this sort of antenna of feeling, and has identified bits of information that goes to a part of our brain that's much older than our thinking brain, our neocortex, I guess. And it gives us these feelings of anything from attraction to dread, anything from curiosity to wariness. So you're getting all this information, and it's being processed and then communicated to the rest of you through feelings. And so what I'd like to say is that you already know what the future is. Depending on what the topic is, you actually know where this is going. You have taken in enough information so that you know what's going to happen in school. You know what's going to happen during election time. You know what's going to happen with your job and your relationships, all of those things. You actually know the answer to that. You just get in your own way because what we're consciously thinking about is what we're able to ascribe words to and logic to, and to actually, integrate it into a meaning and our stories of reality and what's so. And it doesn't make room for surprises. It doesn't make room for the incredible, even the seemingly impossible, which is an option for the future. So storytelling is unique in that it taps into that part of our brain, our subconscious, our soft, our vast, our feeling part, our old part, our animal part. And we get to ask it questions and it gets to tell us answers. And we're doing it all by ourselves by telling a story. It's extremely concrete and practical. And when I say tell the future, this is not a data point. Well, in a sense it is, but it is not something measurable. You will receive a mythic truth, which means that you will know it's true, and then you can unpack it and bring meaning to it however you need to. But you're going to receive a golden nugget of truth, mythic truth, that then you can actually spend some time with and see what it means to you in terms of day-to-day stuff. For example, you may get an image that's very powerful for you, that has what we call in the how to story world narrative density. It's packed with story and context. And that may have exactly the answer to your question around what's going to happen with your child's school this year. But it's not going to be, school is going to open on September 14th, and it's going to look like this with this particular policy. It might, but likely not. More, it's going to give you a nugget that's going to give you what you actually want, which is serenity for what you have control over and what you don't have control over. And it will give you a sense of where this is going. You will feel confident that you have a sense of where this is going, in as much as it's going to benefit your life and remove the anxiety. That's really ultimately our goal, right? That's what we want to know, because the unknowing is making us anxious. So we want to get to that serenity and that feeling and that acceptance by having enough information to satisfy it. And that's what the storytelling is going to do. So what's behind me is the three parts of every story. So every story has a beginning, middle, and end. Now, those can be all compact and made dense in a very short story. And in that case, it's the moment that you start talking, what gets you through the sentence, and then how you conclude the sentence. But they're very different impulses, the three parts of a story. Beginning, middle, and end line up with feeling, willing, and thinking. And so what that means is that to start a story is very different than ending a story. To start a story, we need fuel, and that fuel tends to be feeling. We feel that we need to tell a story, and so we will. And it's usually filled with feeling. Oftentimes when we're telling a story, the impulse to tell it is out of a feeling, is out of a sadness, is out of a longing, is out of a excitement, out of a tiredness. It's out of some old part of us. And we haven't quite gotten to the meaning yet. We're launching into the dark because we feel impelled to. It takes courage. It takes strength to begin a story. But to get through it, you need will forces. Anybody who's ever told a story before, once you start, you get over that hump, it gets easier, but then it's more challenging on a different level. It's more like, you make the decision to start digging the hole, and then you have to actually follow through and dig the hole. So it takes steadiness, it takes resolution, it takes focus, go, 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 and then ending the story. That's our moment of thinking, of actually wrapping it up. And I don't necessarily mean considering it before speaking. It just becomes a more intellectual experience because, we launched into it with our heart, we've trudged through it with our limbs, and now we need to end it, and we need to recall all the different bits and pieces of the story so we can wrap it all up in a bow and give it away. So that last part right there is going to be your nugget. You're going to think about the ending of your story. You're going to unpack it. But to get to that nugget, it's going to be a heart and limb experience. So the most important part of this process is knowing what story you want to tell. In other words, what bit of information do you want? So take a moment now and consider that. What part of the future do you want to know? All right, so you can write it down. And for those of you who feel comfortable, just to kind of give us a little sense, maybe toss it in the chat and I can offer, I won't say who it is, but I'll offer some examples. Are you wanting to know the future about a relationship? Are you wanting to know the future about money, job, destiny, specific stuff like when is school going to start, whatever. So as you think about that, okay, school starting, uncertain times, excellent. Good, good, all right. And a few of you are having some video issues, and I think maybe that got resolved because I don't see anybody that has an icon that says that they can't see me. Okay, great. All right. Some people can't see me for some reason. Well, jobs, moving, safety, outside the home. Good. Good. Well, I'm glad you can hear me. That's great. Wondering if we'll move. Very good. Yeah, these are big, big things. Good. Excellent. And if you want the other attendees to be reading these, just make sure that you put all panelists and attendees in that rather than just all panelists. Yeah, trust in ourselves, right. You want to know that you can do it. Excellent. Creating community. Excellent. Good. All right. So be as specific as you can about what you want the answer to, what story you're going to tell. And then we'll just go through a step-by-step. So once you have set that intention, know that you're going to tell yourself a story. I do it all the time. It feels weird if you've never done it before, but it is incredibly powerful and it always works. Every single time has worked for me. When I have a major thing that's going on and I don't know what's going on and I want an answer to something, I tell myself a story using this process and I get just pure gold. Now, I may not understand that pure gold immediately, but eventually I will because I've tapped into a very smart part of who I am. So the answer to the future that you want to find may seem like it's about somebody else, but make it about yourself. This story is about yourself. So you may want to know something about somebody else, but it's because you want to feel a certain way, or it's going to give you some sort of solace. It's going to satisfy something. You're anxious, you're worried, you're angry, whatever it is. This story is going to be about you, just so you know. And what you can do is pick a metaphor. So the story that you're going to tell yourself can work if you're telling a story about yourself. But I find it's more effective if you pick something metaphoric. You won't trip up on the details of and fall into a trap, which I'll get more into in a moment, where you start to steer the story. If you let go into a metaphor, meaning that you tell a story about a bunch of camels, or you tell a story about a candle maker, or you tell a story about young Benjamin Franklin, something that you don't really know the specifics about, and it's wide open in terms of where it can go. So if you've written down your intention, underneath it, just pick randomly some metaphor, an animal, a plant, a fairy, an old world profession, a historical figure. Go ahead and do that. Great. All right. And now you start your story. Before you open your mouth, I want you to get in touch with how you feel around this particular subject first. So you focus in on the feeling first. Starting a story is about feeling. So if it is about moving, if it is about creating community, if it is about uncertainty around school, tap into all your questions about that and all your worries about that, or all whatever it is, whatever your feeling is, feel it, get it into your body, and then you're going to pivot hard away from the questions and the intentions and all of that, and go straight for the raccoons, go straight for the mole, go straight for the sunflower fairy, whatever your metaphor is. Open your mouth and let a story start. Just say, once upon a time, there was a sunflower fairy who was what? It likely, and maybe even should, have nothing to do with what you were just talking about. Just wing it. You're by yourself. This doesn't have to be an elegant story. It's not going to be. All you're doing is taking 5 minutes and blah, blah, blahing. So next, when I'm creating spontaneous content, I follow 4 steps. I pay attention to my environment. It often gives me cues, gives me an idea for where to take the story. I might tell a story about a screwdriver. I might tell a story about a pencil. I might tell a story about a fork. Who cares? And then affection, I'm always revisiting how I feel, because that's going to get me to that vast vault of information, is how I feel, following how I feel. And I approach the story, meaning I don't know where it's going. Crouched and ready and approaching the story. I don't know where the end of it is. So I'm not steering it anywhere. And then allowance is exactly that. I'm getting out of the way. I'm letting the story go blah, 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 blah out. And it doesn't seem to have anything to do with moving. It doesn't seem to have anything to do with school. It's about raccoons finding the next meal and getting lost and finding a hole in a tree and discovering something in the tree. But, okay. And then at an appointed moment, whenever you feel like it, you will have an experience. Your heart will say, aha. Not your head, your heart will say, aha. Land the story at that point. Doesn't have to be a tidy ending or an elegant ending, but just end it. And you're going to engage your intellectual mind in order to do that. And then sit with the story for a moment to figure out what that golden bit of truth was. Because in that moment, or an hour from then, or the next day, you will realize you got something really relevant to your question. You just need to sit with it a little bit and let that more metaphor jog your subconscious and bring that information to the surface, and then realize, oh, I know exactly what's going to happen in November. I know exactly what's going to happen at school. And notice that you get the intended result, which is to feel differently about the future. Not feeling anxious about the future, because you have a sense of the future. You have a sense of where things are going, and you can drop your shoulders until another question comes up, and then you tell yourself another story, because that's another thing about the future. I don't actually believe it's fixed. At least our experience of the future is not fixed. So you'll want to check in from time to time until you can find that ease, shoulder dropping serenity of, okay, I know what's going to happen, or at least I know enough about what's going to happen, and I accept it. Or I know what to do, or I know what my part in the future is. And shoulders drop until the next anxious or curious or wondering or anxiety or worry or frustration. And then you tell yourself another story, find the little bit of information, and then land again. So don't steer this. Number one thing, if you feel yourself steering this story in a particular way, wreck the story, meaning pay attention, find something, a bit of chalk, a stool, let it upset the story. The raccoons were going down the water and they came upon a broken wooden stool that was interrupting the flow of the water. Who knows where the story is going to go from here? But your subconscious is always involved and will find a way if you trust it. Okay, so that's it in terms of the content part of this. I recommend that you all try this at least 3 times and see what your experience is. And then if you have any questions, you can get in touch with me. And I am very excited to help you learn how to tell and continually practice being able to divine the future in all aspects of your life. This has been fun. And for those of you who are still here live, ask your questions in chat or raise your hand if you're going to, if you'd like to come forward and interact with me, ask a question with me, or practice with me. So 3 times with the same question, it can be. Mostly, I just want you to do it. I don't want you to do it once and be completely confused by the process and not do it again. Just tell yourself you're going to do it 3 times. And then do it 3 times, ideally in 3 consecutive days, and just see what happens. See if this is a tool that works for you. Any other questions, or anybody want to come forward and interact a bit? Try to do this right before bed and see what happens there. Great time. We're in a particularly soft space before going to bed. It's a great time to tell yourself a story. I like to do it in the car when I'm by myself, headed to wherever. I like to go for walks and pretend that I'm on the phone and tell myself a story then. That's a good time to do it. But are there any other clarifying questions that I can help with? As someone who regularly plans out multiple scenarios, what might happen? How do you keep that from derailing the story? You derail the story. So that's when I say wreck the story. So if you find yourself steering it, that's when you wreck it. If you are all over the place, great. Let it go all over the place. At some point, you're going to need to stop the story and you're going to pull it together in order to end it. And you may have 5 different narratives that are in there. But when you finish the story, something incredible happens and a piece of gold bubbles to the surface. The story as a whole may be a mess, but a bit of golden information will be available to you either immediately after the story is over, or in an hour after you've forgotten it, or the next day after you've had a sleep. Trust that the wisdom will be there. Yes, chores, excellent idea for that. So don't ever worry about derailing the story. Only derail, and what you need to worry about actually is a story that is too well crafted. Those be suspicious of, because that means you're probably telling a story that you're kind of preparing right before you actually speak it. And that's the kind of story that isn't very helpful. You want the messy ones. All right. Can this work if like with kids? Yes. So you can tell a story to other people as well. What tends to happen when you're telling a story to your kids or to someone else is that you want it to be a good story, and I don't want you to let that get in the way of accessing the wisdom. So what you want to do is the most important thing is to be able to access the subconscious. And if you are not being controlled by a desire to look good or have a solid story, or your kids are saying, "What? Tell more about this or that," I find it's easier to tell it by yourself. But for those of you who have had more practice, definitely do it with kids. That's how all the sparkle stories would happen. Is that I would interact with the information that I was getting from the children as another opportunity to jog the subconscious and access that wisdom. All right, if I say part and then let them say part. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so you're using that as a disruptor, whatever the children say, and that will continue. Your subconscious is vast. It's the internet. So you will never completely derail it. I've experienced this by having the most outrageous, like I just told a spontaneous story for a camp up in New Hampshire that wanted me to come and tell a 15-minute story, and I asked for certain things, and the third thing that they gave me was completely out of left field, and how I was going to integrate that, it became the center part of the story. How long do you stay in the feeling anxiety before jumping into the story? Well, your heart is going to maintain that. What you want to leave is the information. What you want to leave is the intention, the imagery. You can stay in your feeling because your feeling is probably going to change through the course of the story. So don't worry about trying to feel differently. There is a process where you can actually change the way you feel by setting an intention of, I feel this way right now, I want to feel this way, and then your intention is more about that. And so you will find you just need to make room. Don't hold on to your feeling, but don't try to push it away. Your feeling is an ally with the storytelling process. If analysis later, we are looking for a feeling that comes up from it or a specific image, picture, symbol. So the golden nugget generally is in the form of an image or a section of the narrative. And that is often intrinsically connected to a certain feeling or group of feelings. But the golden part, what I'm talking about, that you're going to analyze later, is tends to be an image, tends to be a moment of the story, or the moral of the story. So it's the whole story itself. In the end, the raccoons learned that what you thought was an impediment actually turned out to be something that created a whole new community, a little beaver dam in front of it. So there you go. Interesting, right? So yeah, that's what you want, is the image, the part of the story, or the entire story. Any other questions? This is great questions. Thank you so much. So David at davidsewellmccann.com. Ask me with any other questions or follow up. And those of you who are not members to How to Story, we do these every other week. And we do practice sessions every other week, so they are staggered. And sometimes Meredith leads the practice or the tutorial. Sometimes I do. Sometimes it's both of us. But we're always in practice and always bringing applications to the storytelling and storying process. So it's $12 a month. You can consider that. And I hope this is helpful for you during this very anxious time and uncertain time. So I hope it is as effective for you as it has been for me. So thank you all. And until next time, bye-bye.